And welcome back. As we go ahead and continue looking at arrays, we're now going to go ahead and take a look at something known as a ragged array, or as it sometimes is also referred to as a jagged array. So with ragged arrays, most programmers typically, when they create two-dimensional array structures, it's going to have the same number of entries for each row in that two-dimensional array. However, it is possible for different rows to have a different number of columns. These are what we are going to refer to as ragged arrays. So to really help explain this concept, let's start with an ordinary non-ragged two-dimensional array as follows. Double A is equal to new double 3, 5. So that means in this example, you're going to have 3 rows, and each of those rows are going to have 5 columns. So it would be the equivalent of saying double array A equals new double 3, and then an empty size. And what we can do is say, hey, at A of 0, let's set this to a new double size 5. A of 1, new double size 5. A of 2, new double size 5. Now the line A equals new double 3, and then we have the empty bracket there, makes A the name of an array with room for 3 entries, each of which can be an array of doubles that can be of any length. So the next 3 lines are there really to help create an array of doubles of length 5 to be named by A of 0, A of 1, and A of 2. So our net result is that we get a two-dimensional array of base type double with 3 rows and 5 columns. However, if we want, we could make each of those individual arrays a different length. So A of 0 could have its own, A of 1 could have its own, A of 2 could have its own. And if we want to look at this as an example, let's say we have a double array B. So in this multi-dimensional array, we're saying B equals new double 3. So B of 0 equals new double 5. B of 1 equals new double 10. B of 2 equals new double 4. So that means there's 5 columns in that first row. There's 10 columns in the second row. And there's 4 in the final row. Now, this might seem like something that's very interesting, but it's very much more of a niche case that we have to work here. Because when we look at ragged arrays, there are situations where we can properly use things like ragged arrays, but actually most applications aren't going to require them. In fact, there might be even different data structures that you could use instead of using a ragged array that might give you different functionalities. However, we should still understand ragged arrays because it's going to help us have a little bit better understanding of how all multidimensional arrays work inside of Java. And so let's go ahead and just take a look at a quick demo here. So here we are creating a two-dimensional array with 2 rows. And you can see we have left our columns purposely blanked because we're setting this up as a ragged array. And so we're going to say, all right, our first row has 3 columns. Our second row has 2 columns. Then we're simply just going to fill those values of the array. And this is when using the length instance variable is very, very useful because we're using a ragged array. We don't necessarily going to say, well, each column is going to be worth 5 or each column is worth 10. What if you said it's to 5, but you have a column that's only worth 3? You're going to run into a problem. So by keeping it to the length, it allows us to avoid running into that potential issue. And then, of course, we can just output that. So let's go ahead and just give this a quick run. And so we get here the contents of the 2D jagged array, or we can again call this a ragged array. Name is interchangeable. And so we get 0, 1, 2. That's our first row. And the next one is 3, 4. If you want to see this again with maybe just a little bit more pronounced effect, I'm actually going to send it just to a tab, and let's add in a vertical pipe here just to make that a little bit more pronounced. Let's go ahead and instead of making this simply have 2 rows, let's go for 5 rows. And if I go ahead and leave this as is, I'm going to, of course, need to define those other ones. So if I go ahead and copy this, let's go ahead and just add in some more here just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to do 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to, let's make this one 10. We'll make this one 5. And I'll leave the last one at 2. Go ahead and run. And you can see we now have our ragged array with each of these columns having different sizes inside of them. So again, a great demonstration of how we can use these. It's not something you're probably going to use too often inside of your programming journey, but it is something that is good to know and understand how Java can handle them.